If you're getting really frustrated, and she was getting her ass kicked. Pat Rafter says Coco Gauff letting out frustration isn't always a bad thing. Gauff completed this task after an abysmal performance in a 6-1, 6-2 defeat to Elina Svitolina in the quarterfinals of the Australian Open. Her serve was getting pounced upon once more, while a wayward forehand saw her usually very high-level fall off as she struggled to get into the match. Afterwards, in her fury and frustration, she walked off backstage to find what she thought was a place to let out a little steam, taking it out on her racket, which took a full brunt of a Gauff hammering. It was broadcasted on TVs around the world before it went very viral online over social media. She talked about it in her press conference. "I have a issue with the broadcast," she stated. "I tried to go somewhere where I thought there wasn't a camera, because I don't like breaking rackets. I went somewhere where I thought they wouldn't broadcast it, but obviously they did. Maybe some conversations can be had." Not only her, but world number 2 Iga Swiatek was also quick to share her opinion on this situation. "The question is, are we tennis players, or are we animals in the zoo where they are observed even when they poop? You know." Okay, that was exaggerating obviously, but it would be nice to have some privacy. Rafter has his say. The former world number 1 called for the players to be smarter and find somewhere where there are no cameras being on show. "Well, there's a safe space, and that's your locker room if you want to unload," he said on Nova FM's Jason Lawrence show on Thursday. "They can't really have cameras in there, can they?" Not that smashing a racket was a bad thing through the eyes of the Aussie, who believed it was a great way of letting out frustration and anger. "I actually said to one of the players that it's fine to let the emotion out on the court too," he said. "Because if you're getting really frustrated, and she, Gauff, was getting her ass kicked, she just couldn't find a way back in. Then let that frustration out. Sometimes, at the end of the first set, just demolish a racket, and then it just clears everything." While it was a good method, doing it all the time was not the best option. "For me, in my career, it was a reset," he described it as. "If you continually keep smashing your racket as the sets go along, that's not great, but it's about getting the anger out." It is not an uncommon thing to see players smash their rackets within the premises of the court, even on it, as they sometimes lose control over their anger and it spills for the world to see. Gauff bottled in her anger in her quarterfinal match, with it in dire need to let it spill. The reason she did not do it on court was because she does not want to set a bad example for the younger generation. Thus why she tried to hide it somewhere secretive. Now, this has led to another debacle, in which the players are trying to fight for their privacy. Tennis, at its core, is a battle not just of skill but of emotion. Each match is a test of patience, stamina, and mental fortitude. It's a sport where composure is celebrated, where players are often taught to maintain a stoic front even when their bodies ache and their spirits burn. Yet, sometimes, the raw, unfiltered expression of frustration, yelling, hitting, stomping, can reveal more than it conceals. That's the lesson Pat Rafter, a former world number 1 and Australian tennis legend, highlighted when speaking about Coco Gauff's recent displays on the court. "If you're getting really frustrated, and she was getting her ass kicked," Rafter said, "letting it out isn't always a bad thing." On first hearing it, Rafter's words may seem casual, almost colloquial, but they carry a weight of wisdom born from years of elite competition. In elite sports, frustration is often painted as a weakness, a crack in the armor. Players are coached to remain calm, maintain a neutral face, and, above all, not give the opponent a hint that they are struggling. But frustration is also a signal, a deeply human reaction to challenge, and when expressed constructively, it can be a catalyst for growth. Coco Gauff, at just 19, has already become a symbol of tennis's new generation, explosive, fearless, and unapologetically authentic. Watching her on court, one sees a player who feels every point, every swing, every decision, intensely. When things aren't going her way, she doesn't hide her feelings behind a mask of politeness. She reacts, sometimes with a scream, sometimes with a grunt, sometimes with that tight, furrowed brow that says, "I will not go down without a fight." Rafter's point is subtle but profound. He isn't condoning uncontrolled rage, nor is he celebrating tantrums. Rather, he's acknowledging that frustration, when released, can be a tool rather than a hindrance. It's a release valve for the mind and body. Suppressing emotion can lead to internal pressure, tension that manifests in stiffness, hesitancy, or mistakes. By contrast, letting out frustration, vocalizing it or expressing it physically can reset the emotional equilibrium. For Gauff, a young athlete in the relentless spotlight of professional tennis, these outbursts are not a sign of weakness but a mechanism of mental survival. Consider the psychology behind this. Athletes at the highest level often describe a state of flow, where every action feels effortless, precise, and aligned with intention. Flow is disrupted by internal turmoil, the spiraling frustration of mistakes or setbacks. When a player like Gauff yells into her towel or slams her racket against the court in controlled bursts, she is, in effect, purging the disruption. The scream, the stump, the expletive, they are temporary tools to restore focus, to tell her mind, I am still in control, I will keep fighting. This isn't new in sports, though the language around it has changed. Old-school coaches often preached stoicism above all else. Champions were supposed to smile serenely after a missed shot or a double fault, to be the embodiment of grace under pressure. But athletes are human. Passion and frustration are intertwined. Serena Williams, Rafael Nadal, and Jimmy Connors, all of whom allowed themselves occasional outbursts, demonstrated that emotion does not necessarily diminish performance. Sometimes, it fuels it. Gauff's frustration also speaks to her competitive DNA. To be frustrated, in sports, is to care. It's a marker of ambition, a recognition of standards. If a player didn't care about the outcome, mistakes would be met with indifference. The very act of getting her ass kicked, as Rafter puts it, triggers a fight-or-flight response, a surge of energy, a sharpening of focus, a call to arms. For viewers, these moments humanize the athlete, making her relatable and authentic. Fans see not just a tennis player but a fighter, someone who feels deeply and refuses to hide it. Yet, there is artistry in managing frustration. The line between constructive release and destructive outburst is fine. A scream that is explosive but brief can be a reset. A temper tantrum that lingers can become a distraction. For young athletes like Gauff, learning to harness emotional energy without letting it control them is a critical skill. Rafter's observation acknowledges this nuance. It's not about suppressing feelings, but about channeling them strategically. Frustration on the court is also